After all the hype that you've heard over the course of the last 2 years about the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, we're proud to announce our new venture, the Women of Conservation Calendar, that showcases and celebrates the women that helped defeat Proposition 127. 14 months of the calendar of all of the women that helped, plus more, the convention dates, deadlines, draw application dates, commission meetings, and things going on at the Colorado State Capitol. This is an opportunity to support CRWM and the efforts that we continually work on through the Colorado State Capitol, Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission, and to address all of the ballot issues that continually arise. We've got some fantastic sponsors that help prop up and just showcase who these women are. Rodeo queens, barrel racers, houndswomen, general sportsmen, mothers, and every avocation you could think, from archery hunting to muzzleloading to rifle hunting and waterfowl as well. These women stuck their necks out to help save the hunt. Get it for yourself. It makes a great gift. Make sure you get it before Christmas, and look at all the other important dates that are coming up. $24.95, SaveTheHuntColorado.com. If you're looking to explore your opportunities to hunt out west, maybe try Colorado. If you're trying to get information about bighorn sheep, elk, deer, private land, public land, maybe it's everything that you want to do as far as pack-in trips. Maybe it's just having a pack trip decided for you, and then when you get there, you just hunt out of a drop camp. Make sure you check out the Colorado Outfitters Association. Colorado Outfitters Association here in the state of Colorado has got a numerous amount of outfitters that are members, and they can supply you with whatever you're looking to try to acquire and what you want to do for the hunt of a lifetime. For more information, check out the coloradooutfitters.org, and make sure that you let them know that you heard about them with Through the Gates, and let them know that you're trying to continue to save the hunt in the state of Colorado. We always talk about supporting businesses that support our efforts to be able to save the hunt in Colorado. Well, the Colorado Shed Company in Penrose, Colorado, just outside Canyon City, is one of those partners. Colorado Shed has been building sheds in the state of Colorado for the last 10 years and is actually owned by sportsmen and women. They support the efforts of what the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management has done, and they also support all the organizations that you're probably a member of. Whether you're looking for small modular type buildings, sheds for your property to store the extra hunting equipment, or maybe just to turn around and put that freezer in for all the meat that you've got, check out Colorado Sheds. They also do pole barns and can do custom manufacturing to whatever your heart desires. She sheds, man caves, it doesn't matter. Check out coloradosheds.com. Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it.
Dan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, and good to catch each other in the middle of hunting season.
Absolutely. So your screen backdrop there is looks like the Northern Lights.
Yeah, Northern Lights. It's interesting that a ton of people, millions of people, have seen the Northern Lights in Colorado this year. We have not been fortunate enough to do so, but I've been to Canada twice this year. I was trapping in the Yukon Territories in February, and I saw a very slight glimmer of a overcast shadow that simulated the Northern Lights. And then I just got back from Canada on Sunday up into Saskatchewan, and we didn't see any Northern Lights, but we had people sending us pictures that saw Northern Lights in Colorado. And I'm like, I drive 1,300 miles north and I still couldn't get to them.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find a photo here. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was on my mule deer hunt in Colorado.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, we just looked up at the sky and we're like, you're out of service. We're not on the internet or anything. Didn't even know we were supposed to see the Northern Lights. And we just look up and we're like, what the hell? And I'd never seen them before. And I was like, I thought they were supposed to be like your screensaver, like greenish and purplish hues, and it was like this amazing red and some orange hues coming in and out. It was beautiful.
It's wicked how, and I was, well, 150, 160 miles as the crow flies north of where you hunted, and
Mm.
we didn't see them.
Mm.
Um, and then, like I said, then I went 1,300 miles north, and people in Colorado, northern Colorado, still saw them, and I was farther north than them.
Yeah,
Just a weird. Uh,
yeah.
but they're cool. I mean, I got this backdrop on here that I had for a Zoom meeting because I didn't want to show all the people the dead stuff behind me, and
Hmm.
I couldn't figure out how to get the damn backdrop off, so I just left it on because I just got back from Canada. So
Right on. So, what were you doing in Saskatchewan?
we hunted whitetails, and I got a chance to do a little bit of trapping with the outfitter, and we're going to have a podcast coming out on our podcast with him probably in about 2 weeks. Short podcast, but spent 5 days hunting whitetail. Uh, Me and a friend of mine were both successful. Our other two counterparts were unsuccessful, um, and I think Brett and I's luck just was luck of the draw because that's the only two legitimate bucks that any of us saw during daylight hours. We saw a lot of stuff on cameras
Hmm.
after dark. Uh, but I lucked out, and mine must have had a brain fart or something because he showed up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon the first day, and after talking to the outfitter and him telling me when we were going in that first morning, if this buck shows up, you should probably consider taking it. And
Hmm.
so he showed up after a few other deer showed up, and I'm like, holy crap, that's the buck he was talking about. So it was it was a cool deal. It didn't get cold enough. This was the first time
Hmm.
that this outfitter said in the last 20 some odd years that he had taken a picture of a harvested deer and there's no snow in the picture. Uh,
Mm.
and there was no snow. We had no snow whatsoever. It was
Sounds like
maybe,
my Colorado trip. You
yeah,
know, like,
just
where's all the dang snow for third rifle season?
yeah.
Uh,
Um, I was kind of surprised because I took way too much stuff. We drove up, so we had plenty of room, but I took way too much stuff in anticipation of inclement weather. And
mhm.
it was, around 20 Fahrenheit at night, 30 Fahrenheit during the day, which is still chilly in a blind with 85% humidity, but it wasn't cold by any means.
Yeah. That hunt I just did was the first backcountry hunt where I actually took those things that you put over your boots, those
Hmm.
like Arctic Shield things or whatever, and they're like
Yeah.
little booties you
Uh-huh.
slip on over your hiking boots
Yeah.
while you're
Yeah.
sitting there glassing. So we were expecting
Uh-huh.
really cold temperatures and snow and whatever. And I mean, we moved camp at one point in time, uh, into a little lower elevation and started finding a lot more deer. Just no bucks. It was all does and forkies and stuff. But when we were moving camp, one guy's just doing it in shorts. I was just like, this is not normal for November in
Really?
Colorado. Yeah, it was. I mean, temperatures got into the 60s. And it was just like, what? So, but the first morning I did put those on. It was chilly. I mean, in our wall tent, our water was freezing at night, and so it was
Oh.
cold. But
Hmm.
um,
It's
but
weird
during the
too
day it
because
was just
all the
hot.
ice, all the ice on all the ponds and the lakes up there was solid ice. People were talking about you could drive across this, and I'm like, I wouldn't drive across that when it was, 7 foot thick.
Right.
But then it had froze up, and he had done some beaver trapping and some otter trapping, and everything was iced up. But it was not. Of course, you get at 1,600 foot elevation with 85% humidity. I think it has a tendency to ice up quicker because as soon as we got into Montana and northern Wyoming, it was actually a little colder there, but there was open water. We didn't see any ice, and it was just
Yeah.
400 or 500 miles to the north, and there was a complete difference on the ice flow.
Hmm. So what is a nice whitetail where you were hunting score? How big was your buck?
I have no idea on the score. I think he's probably a 140, real heavy, long brow tines, biggest whitetail I've ever killed. I mean, I
Hmm.
haven't hunted whitetail very much, and but they had some. 180, 190 type bucks on camera. And the guys that I went with that are part of our team here in Colorado, um, they had gone there several times before and killed some 160, 170 class bucks.
Oh wow.
Um, and I'll send you a picture. I mean, they're not giant, but you show them to people and they're like, "Holy crap, I would kill for a buck like that." And I'm like, "Well, I about did." And if I didn't shoot that buck, I don't think I'd have shot a buck because I don't think I would have seen a buck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And then how heavy are these deer?
but I'll send you a picture. Pretty heavy. Uh, the the they look bulky. Uh, the the weight of the deer itself. Well, mine was a 200 and what the hell was it? 236 pound uh hanging weight,
Oh
and
yeah.
the other guys was a 264 pound hanging weight. Um, and they're big deer, but
Yeah.
uh, mine was run down pretty good. You could tell where he'd been running his ass off trying to chase the girls, and
Uh-huh.
had some damage to him from. He didn't bust his horns up, but he had some damage for bruises and scars and intrusions on his body.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, I had hunted whitetail in Alberta in 2001, and at that time it never got above 15 below zero.
Hmm.
It was over the Thanksgiving holiday in 2001. I saw one deer in 5 days and froze my ass off. Uh, and I sat in a tree stand, and I remember vividly. I don't know how cold it was, but I peed. I couldn't find what I needed to use to pee through my coveralls, and when I finally did, I peed, and the pee froze before it hit the ground. And I had those heat warmer packs that you got.
Yeah.
I had so many of those wrapped around my midsection because it was so cold. I burned myself because
Oh.
I was just trying to stay alive in the tree. and
Uh-huh.
uh and I was fully prepared this time, but it didn't happen like that. But we saw a hell of a lot more deer this time than we did that one time.
Yeah.
So
We were
it's
backpacking one time in New Mexico. My brother put hand warmers in his sleeping bag and woke up with like second degree burns. No, even third degree
yeah,
burn. Like he didn't have to go to the hospital, but he was in bad shape from just
yeah,
sleeping on those things, those hot hands. Yep.
yeah. I didn't freeze. This guy had some really badass uh, insulated blinds,
Uh-huh.
and then he put these little propane heaters in them, and we were spoiled. I mean,
Yeah.
you could have sat in there for 3 weeks, and they were big enough you could have laid down if you wanted to. But
Uh-huh.
I had never sat in a blind that was as comfortable, and he went all out and made sure that everybody had a good time and did not freeze their butts off. But I just texted him yesterday, and he said it was in the 20s up there today, but um, I think on Thanksgiving Day and Friday and Saturday it's supposed to be high around 0 to 10
Mm.
Fahrenheit. Uh,
Hmm.
so so that these other guys are getting a little bit of the brunt of what the weather should be, but they still haven't gotten any damn snow.
Yeah. Yeah, those little buddy heaters are pretty awesome. I'd say the coldest I've been hunting whitetails was in Nebraska, in the northern Nebraska, flying to South Dakota, drive down to the Sandhills, and it was, I think it was probably about. Some people will be like, "Well, that's not even cold," but it was like 8 degrees, and the wind was whipping
Yeah.
like 30 miles an hour. I mean, that's pretty cold for a Texan. And
Yeah.
we had one of those buddy heaters in the blind, and I was like, "Oh, thank God for this thing! Keep my toes from freezing."
It
But
actually made it comfortable, and they were like I say, they were insulated blinds, and it just made it really enjoyable to sit there, especially for multiple hours with no
Mhm.
activity whatsoever. I mean, nothing. One of our buddies, one of our comrades there, he um, he saw otter, and he saw fisher, and he saw weasels, and he saw coyotes, and he saw beavers, and he saw foxes, and he didn't see a freaking deer for the first 4 days. But he was entertained with all the other stuff. So
Uh-huh.
uh,
That's cool.
yeah, it was cool to get away. I mean, we're so busy on the political side here in Colorado. Last year during the campaign, I didn't the first time in 49 years that I didn't hunt my own state, and
Hmm.
uh, and we couldn't because we were fighting the politics side, And so I made a pact with myself that so much of our stuff overlaps with what we do on the legislative side and what we do on the commission side. And I told my wife, I said, well, one way or another, we're going hunting somewhere. So my son and I both drew New Mexico muzzleload and elk tags for October, and we went down there and each harvested a good bull, and came back, and I was fortunate enough to go to Saskatchewan with these other guys. And then I have a late season cow tag here that when I start trapping over Thanksgiving weekend, I'll be able to go try to fill the freezer up. So
Nice. So okay, so you guys drew tags in New Mexico?
yeah, Area 15 down in the Gila.
Oh wow.
And
How'd you get so lucky?
actually, I don't know, because we've drawn that twice in 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
That's incredible.
which
Yeah.
which is kind of cool because they took scopes off down there. The first time we hunted with scopes on the muzzleloader, which made it it wasn't easier, but it was more accommodating for somebody that has to wear progressive glasses than looking through open sights trying to see something.
Yeah.
And my I can see fine until you line up the front side, the back side, and the target. And because of the progressives, it's almost like a kaleidoscope or something. You're like, I know I'm there, but I got to line up 2 out of the 3 to make it work. I just wish that they would allow us to turn around and use not a magnifying scope, but at least an optic with a crosshair in it that was 0 or 1 power. And I think it would help out on the. I really believe it would help out on the potential wounding and more ethical shot placements for people, because open sights, we've extended our muzzleloading ranges and our rifle ranges so much that open sights hamper one's ability to legitimately place something in the crosshairs at 100 yards or 150 yards. It's, I mean, you hold a muzzleloader dot on something at 150 yards, and the dot's bigger than the elk. And some guys want to stretch that shot. I haven't, because I'm trying to shoot close enough as it is because of my glasses. But it should be nice if we turn around and had the option to be able to use a 1 power or 0 power, optic.
Yeah, I don't have one of those fancy, new muzzleloaders that can shoot out to 400 yards. I just have a CV. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, CVA. Optima V2 is what I have. Yeah, and I shot that whitetail in Nebraska. I shot a 10-point there on that hunt I was telling you about where I was freezing. And it was 180 yards, and I was like, "Oof, I'm pushing here." But of course, with a scope. But I was using 3 of the black powder pellets, so it was getting out there with some force behind it. But yeah, I don't know. Your state doesn't allow optics, because I've hunted mule deer and elk with a muzzleloader in Colorado, and I couldn't take a scoped. Yeah, I had to take the scope off on muzzleloader.
Had to take a scope off, and even on some of the long range type muzzleloaders that we've got on the market now, like the 45 caliber Gunworks, which is an excessively long range muzzleloader. You can't use a scope, but you can't use the 45 caliber here for hunting elk. And so that muzzleloader is one of the most potent muzzleloaders on the planet, but you can't use it in Colorado because it doesn't meet 50 caliber for elk. And so I think there could be a revision if people wanted to carry it far enough, but in the state of the state that we're having to deal in, just holding on to what we have
bigger fish
is
to
hard.
fry.
Yeah. I'm not going to gripe about, can we shoot a Gunworks muzzleloader that's 50 caliber, 45 caliber. We're trying to save hunting so we can just hunt and use a caliber.
Yeah. So I saw another one of your British Columbia imports. One of your canines there didn't make it, which was
12
like
now.
Yeah, and so that's 12 total and we're talking about the reintroduced wolves. And then what is that? 6 out of the 15 they brought in from BC.
I think it is. Yeah.
And I shed a little tear. It was so sad.
We were going to have a memorial, but we couldn't get anybody that wanted to turn on it. You know,
It is so callous, and we sound like assholes when we talk like that. But you know what the thing is? I don't hate wolves, but I'm cheering for this reintroduction to fail in grand fashion. So, and it's not the wolves' fault. But you know, Governor Polis and his husband, this is what they wanted. So,
I'm not. You know, I sat on the stakeholder advisory group for 16 of the 18 months, uh, supposedly because of my expertise and knowledge on the landscape and representation. Uh, I'm not anti-wolf. I'm anti-management. And when the state can't appropriately address issues from a scientific perspective, and they have to continually go back to the social science side of things about people's wishes, wants, and desires, that have trumped the science side, the legitimate wildlife
yeah, it's not
management
even
side.
social science. It's basically just pressure. That's all it is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, and there's a social science component to that plays in only because of the 51% of the people that voted for wolves. That if you listen to our opposition and listen to the commission that has been appointed and that we have to deal with now, you know, the will of the people. And I said this last night on the Rockcast, the will of the people, the will of the people. Uh, Anytime we say anything negative or indifferent from what they believe, they always bring up the will of the people. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, but you ignore the will of the people on 127 when we won by 10.5 points. You ignore on 308 when we won by 17 points. You ignore on Ordinance 309, the slaughterhouse ban, when we won by 31 points. But by God, when you won by 1.5 points, the will of the people should trump everything else. And the hypocrisy that has been driven through these channels of representation, or the lack thereof, is pretty accommodating for an agenda to turn around and wipe us off the planet. And that's what they want. They want us gone, and they don't like anything that we stand for, anything that we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually played a clip from one of your commission meetings. I think it was from over the summer, and it was this dude. I can't remember if he was with
Eminent domain.
Yeah, I think he might have been with Sierra Club or something.
Yeah.
The same dill holes that came down to Texas when they tried to pressure Texas Parks and Wildlife into making mountain lions a game species here.
Yeah.
And you know, it was Defenders of Wildlife, CBD, and then you have organizations like Sierra Club, which I don't think historically was anti-hunting, but it damn sure is now. But yeah, that guy was talking about at Shell's commission meeting, letting the state. He used some really crazy language like the wolves need to live in peace and harmony, void of any human presence. And for this to happen, we will first offer to buy your private property, and then we will use eminent domain to take it from you so that the wolves can live in peace and harmony. Screw the wolves. They don't get a free pass. Do you care about the elk living in peace and harmony away from humans? No. So,
and then on top of that, outside of the eminent domain, it was we need to designate multiple areas of wilderness where there is no human intrusion whatsoever. That you can't hike it, you can't bike it, you can't camp it, you can't hunt it, you can't fish it, you can't do anything because the wolves should have that space. And the sad part about that sort of rhetoric is when you look in a meeting that's got 120 people sitting there, and it almost now is divided up evenly. There's pros on one side and cons on the other side, and you see the people on their side, I call the cons, shaking their head yes in affirmation to these sort of testimonies. And I'm like, these people really, really can't think like that. I don't think, but they are, and this is the rhetoric and the lunacy that they try to bring to the table because they know all and they are right on everything, and none of us are right on anything.
So, was it Burgum or was it the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service director that laid down the law on importing any more Canadian wolves going forward?
Well, essentially, it came from Nesvik.
Nesvik. That's who it was.
Brian Nesvik. Yeah, he's the director for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Josh Corsi, who founded and started the Muley Fanatics Foundation, is the deputy director. Both of them are out of Wyoming. Both of them are great guys, and both of them will continually be criticized from mine and yours opposition because they are a people first, land, wildlife second mentality as long as it's almost an equal ground that,
Yeah.
wildlife and natural resources should not uh, be pedestalized while you and I, as part of the ecosystem, are bastardized. When he sent that letter back to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, saying that there needed to be a cease and desist on further introduction, I think that prefaced what just recently happened in Oregon, where they didn't even want to discuss it, and then Washington, the commission there, voted against giving wolves to Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And then my understanding is the Nez Perce tribe also said no, and now there's some sort of negotiation or compromise at the Colville tribe, who already, from my understanding, had interaction from the Ute and the Ute mountain Utes here in Colorado to say, "Hey, don't give us any more wolves."
Wow.
And all that was precipitated by Nesvik's letter to the agency, which in turn
Mhm.
our governor took offense to, and then he decided that he was going to draw the line in the sand when it came to Washington, which didn't help him.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, nobody
s-
gets offended like a liberal, so
no,
that
no,
tracks. Um, but Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming have already said we're not going to give you any wolves, not because we love our
right.
wolves so much. It's because we saw what happened, and we're not going to help you shoot yourself in the foot any more than you already have. So that left Oregon and Washington State. So I didn't realize that they had both said no, we're not doing it either. So doesn't that kind of leave you
Yeah,
guys with or your governor at an impasse as far as, well, where do I get the wolves now?
and unless they were going to go back to British Columbia some way, shape, or form. But Nesvik kind of put the nix on that,
Mm-hmm.
talking about Canadian wolves. Now there was talk about Alaskan wolves in some capacity, which I don't foresee that happening. From my understanding, Governor Dunleavy out of Washington or Alaska made some attempts to engage, which probably helped the Nesvik letter maybe not originate, but follow through. And you know, it's funny if you look at some of these states that are originally said, "Oh yeah, we'll help you with wolves." They're the liberally minded states. They're the blue
Right.
states. You get into Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota, and then Washington and Oregon, and even look at California. California's even stated that if we had enough, we would give them. Well, yeah, but you've got so much problems with what you have now that maybe
Yeah.
maybe you'd still be willing to give them.
Yeah.
Uh,
So wait, where did because you guys have had a problem with wolves that were known livestock killers that I guess Paulus was like, who cares? We're going to bring them in anyway. And what did they do? They killed livestock. Where did those come from? Washington State?
Oregon, the first
Oregon.
ones
That's
came
right.
from Oregon,
Uh-huh.
and then this last batch that came from British Columbia has now left their mark on a bunch of different livestock herds in Colorado. And while the wolf deaths themselves have kind of taken the line of the press, the depredations that have continued and have actually increased have kind of taken a little bit of a back burner. Uh, and I think that there's a few individuals in the media that we can count on to tell the truth and to carry a story. There's other individuals that, in my mind, are not fully telling the story, and they're trying to muddy the waters on so much of this wildlife, natural resource type of stuff because they are in favor of the governor, and the governor has provided, well, I believe, favoritism to them or their backgrounds. And this is political, and people say, quit trying to make this political. Hey, I didn't make it political. When you
Right.
turn around and put it on the ballot, it becomes political, asshole.
Yeah.
Um, and
I,
and and all we're trying to do is make sure that it stays where it should be, and it doesn't get any farther in the politics, because if it continues to go down that road, it's not going to be beneficial to any species.
yeah. I saw Meat Eater interviewed somebody, I don't know who it was, but younger guy, and they were trying to push, like, the point of the piece in the podcast they did was taking the politics out of hunting. And I just laughed and I was like, you can't ever do that. That's a
No,
fallacy. It's an oxymoron. You
no,
cannot
it
take
won't
politics
happen
out of
in
hunting.
this landscape. It
No,
won't happen in this landscape. You have too much divisiveness, and too much lack of transparency, and too many ignorant people that have opinions about something that they don't know anything about. And so their last resort is to go to appointed officials or elected officials, and then that brings in the political spectrum of this to the point to where once it's there, you're never going to get it out.
hmm hmm Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people at Meat Eater that lean left, so I think that's where they were just coming from, trying to put that out there. And I was like, I just laughed and commented and said that, yeah, that's like utopia, ain't ever happening. It's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
nice idea, but it's not reality. Um,
Well, and here too, consider this, that the funding on wildlife and natural resource management that comes from Dingell Johnson and Pittman Robertson, and the things that are imposed on the Lacey Act or the Migratory Bird Treaty Act or Endangered Species Act, it's all political. From the money to the protection side of it is all political. And if you look at the North American model of wildlife conservation, giving the keys to the wildlife management side to the feds and the states is part of that, to where there's a level of accountability, transparency, and collaboration between states and countries. Well, I don't want politics out of it. I want politics to be considerate of the science to make sure
right.
that it happens appropriately. And anybody that says that they don't want politics would have to agree with that, I think, because if you don't want politics, well, with all due respect, I don't want me and you and our enemies running the damn show. We have to have this buffer, and I think that middle of the road buffer is government agencies to be able to provide that.
Yeah, and historically in this country, those agencies have been guided by scientific principles. And it wasn't until probably the last, I don't know. I think the first one that I remember is in, well, you could go all the way to 94 and wolf reintroduction and the greater Yellowstone states. And then, but you could also go look at, like, the first one I really remember is California banning mountain lion hunting. That was in
Yes.
that was in the 90s.
Yep.
And that's kind of where it really started. And oh, shocker, it originated in California. I was surprised about that. And then that's how we've gotten to where we are here today in 2025, where it's even in Texas, they're coming after mountain lions. It's just, they will try anywhere and everywhere. They will always dip their toe in the water and see, oh, let's see if we can make any headway here. And a lot of times they can't, but they see what the temperature is. They take the temperature, and then, a year later or 5 years later, they come back and they try again with more, and they spend more money and invest more resources on it. And,
that's what I was going to say is their fundraising. If we could fundraise from a sportsman's perspective like they have, we would be unbeatable. It's amazing to me that in today's environment, the way that the sportsman community has been able to prop themselves up and to hold the line without much progression. I mean, we do great conservation work, but when it comes to the fight, we don't have the money and the resources that the enemy does, and we're still holding our own very meticulously. The money that they generate at so many different levels, they lose and they do a call to action and come back with more money and more people and more lies and fallacies and falsehoods. We lose and we're done.
right.
Because our side, and I say this tongue in cheek after us winning 3 different things last year, but when we started that campaign on Initiative 91 that became Proposition 127, the amount of people, it was 98 out of 100 people said, well, good luck, you're going to get your ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was in state, out of state. And I said, wait a minute, if you're going to have that mentality, why do you even apply for a license, for crying out loud? Because 98% of the people are never going to draw that damn thing. And I don't see where sportsmen and women are guaranteed defeatist, but this defeatist mentality is something to where they persevere and they get through the hunting season. I mean, look at Colorado for an example. 9% of Colorado elk hunters are successful. That means 91% aren't. But 100% of that 91% will all apply or hunt the following year.
Right.
And so if we're so much in a defeatist mentality, why do we keep going back to the damn well trying to do something that we haven't been successful on doing? The fight should be the easiest part because we've been winning at the fight.
Yeah. 100%. So transitioning here just a little bit, some other things that are going on in your state, and this is one that I have seen various, and a lot of it's from your all social media posts, but The citizens petitioned to ban commercial sale of fur bearer animals, including all parts and pieces.
Yes.
What's going on there?
Well, they have attempted to try to deal with um, restricting or prohibiting fur bearer harvest for quite some time. And this is their, I think, final attempt under this administration to get what they would like to get. And they think that it's kind of like the old adage of you don't have to get rid of guns, you just get rid of ammo, and then you don't. For the average person,
Right.
they're not gonna reload. If you get rid of fur and the ability to sell it, who's going to go out and harvest it? And there's still going to be people that do it, but not in the numbers that maybe happen otherwise. The interesting thing about this is in Colorado, we have a very limited toolbox because of Amendment 14 back in 1996, where they essentially took a constitutional amendment and took away body gripping devices, cable restraint devices, and foothold traps on public property for avocational purposes. So all we were left was with cages. You could still use the 30-day exemption period with those tools to protect private property, agricultural depredation type issues, but you couldn't use those tools for fun, like what we used to be able to. And so we had cages. Well, once we figured out a way to be able to utilize cages for a variety of different species, it come down to the fact it didn't have to. They didn't really care about the tool. They cared about the harvest. They cared about the fact that you did it. And the numbers that we take now are so limited with a cage trap from an avocational standpoint that the majority of what we harvest in the state, whether it's raccoons or foxes or coyotes or bobcats or whatever, any of the fur-bearing animals, the majority of the stuff that's harvested is harvested with legal methods other than cage traps, such as rifles or shotguns or pistols or muzzleloaders or bows.
So if you want to trap a coyote, you have to use a cage?
On public land, or if you want to do it for fun. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we figured out ways to, I won't say circumvent, we figured out ways to navigate those restrictions. And they went to the commission and to the General Assembly on numerous occasions, unsuccessfully, to be able to take cages away. And they couldn't get that done. So with this governor and the first gentleman, they started talking about fur bearer restrictions because of unlimited harvest, unlimited take. You could kill as many as you want of all the species for $35. But the realization is that the average sportsman that purchases a fur bearer license, because we don't have a trapping license anymore, the average guy that was pursuing beaver was harvesting 2. Now some guys might be 22, some guys might be 1, and a ton of people were none.
Yeah.
But the average guy was doing 2 beavers. The average guy was doing 1.5 or 1.75 bobcats, maybe 4 raccoons. The average guy that was harvested, not the average guys that pursued, but the average guy that harvested. That was unlimited as far as they were concerned. No restrictions, no prohibitions. So they tried to go through the commission and through the General Assembly on several occasions, unsuccessfully, that we were able to stop. All the way since, actually going back to 2007, but especially since this governor took office in 2018, the first of which, with his own commissioners, we defeated by a margin of 11-0 in 2019. And then we did it again in 2020. And then we forced them to withdraw their petition in 21. Then they went to the General Assembly in 22, which we beat them 4-1 at the Colorado State Capitol. And then they repurposed their resources and they went after bobcats and mountain lions in 23 to 24 on Initiative 91, which became Proposition 127. We beat them at every single level, and we beat them at other forms of legislation, and we beat them at other forms of the citizens petition process for the commission. Now, because what the governor wanted and the first gentleman, they started these 2 working groups earlier this year. And the working groups, one is a statewide management plan for beavers, which is a fur bearer, but we couldn't talk about beavers in the fur bearer group. And so we had a stakeholder group for fur bearers and a stakeholder group for beavers. 4.5, 5 months that this transitioned. The day that the fur bearer, the groups met, the pros and the cons, the fors and the against, met, Center for Biological biological diversity, and Samantha Miller, who ran the Cats Aren't Trophies campaign, who came from Washington's Wildlife for All, she filed a petition to the commission on the exact day that the fur bearer group started, to ban the commercialization of fur-bearing animals. Now, Center for Biological Diversity had a representative on the working group. To me, that shows that they didn't give a rat's ass about process, procedure, protocol, transparency, accountability, science, public perception. They wanted what they were going to get, and they were going to turn around and force it down the throats of everybody. On 4 different occasions since they filed that petition in June of this year, they tried to get the commission to undertake that petition. Now, I'll back up real quick and give you some background, because 2 weeks after the election last year on 127, a former carnivore fur bearer biologist for Colorado Parks and Wildlife and myself filed a citizen's petition to the commission to require additional data to be collected on beavers, swift fox, and bobcats to give us a better idea on harvest and accountability for management objectives. Our petition to this day has never been heard on the data side, but 4 times since June, they've tried to initiate and get their petition in front of our petition. Theirs has to do with restrictions. Ours had to do with data and science. They've not considered all ours, but they continually talk about theirs. Now, we've kicked that can down the road in July, and in August, and September, and in October, and in November. And now we had a big knockdown drag out at the last commission meeting 10 days ago, where one of the commissioners opted that they wanted to hear that. They wanted to hear that CBD petition on the commercialization at the last meeting, with no written notice, no rulemaking notice, nothing on the agenda, because they wanted it on the docket because they knew that they were coming up against the timeline of the General Assembly. All of that said, we've got it kicked down to March 3rd and 4th in Denver at the commission, to where both citizens' petitions will be heard in conjunction with the findings and the results of both of the working groups on the fur bearer side and then the one on the beaver side. And I can tell you, the way that this is playing out, I'm concerned that the agency is being further manipulated and undermined and ramrodded and pigeonholed by this governor and the first gentleman. Because, for one, I know a lot of the conversations behind the scenes, but you can see some of this stuff that is coming directly from the commission after talking to First Gentleman Marlon Reese and after talking to the cabinet of the governors, trying to make sure they expedite this process through the next General Assembly session.
Wow. And they haven't even, during that whole time, to reiterate, they refused to hear your request for scientific-based review.
Yeah. And so now, if you listen to the last 2 meetings, the proponents of the decommercialization side said, well, we agree, and we want to hear this other petition. We agree with the petition. And I'm like, until the working groups have been completed, after 5 months of this, $300,000 in a facilitator and stakeholder processes, and this side matches that side, and they all get together in the same room. I don't want our petition heard until the results of the working groups are done, because it would be counterintuitive to the process of transparency and accountability.
Yeah. But they're on a timeline, and they just want it done.
They want it done, hopefully, before the General Assembly recesses. And here's the deal. They know that if they're unsuccessful and we can stop them, they're playing their cards appropriately. If we stop them on March 3rd and 4th, they still have 2 months to run a bill through the General Assembly. So they get beat at the commission again, which is my plan, and then they still have time to go to the General Assembly. Those are their options. Otherwise, unless Governor Polis is going to turn around and try to do some executive order, there's not a hell of a lot of options that he can pull out of the hat between then and the end of his term, which essentially is in November of 26, but he'll still be in office until January 12th of 27.
Okay. Well, your state, there's no telling who will run next, but by God, I hope they're not I hope they're not married to an extreme animal rights activist like Marlon Race. So, goodness
Yeah,
gracious.
well, you hear that old deal that, and we all know this, but happy wife, happy life. Well, there's nothing that could be further from the truth when it comes to the happy wife part of it. But there's something there that this individual has an extreme displeasure for consumptive use and agriculture production, and does not believe in any way, shape, or form that we should do any of what we do, and that they know best, and that they're going to do whatever they can do to get it taken away. And I'll tell you, while it's not been drafted yet, and it might not even come to fruition, there's been conversations about legislators, sympathetic legislators to the other side, of running additional pieces of legislation to ban the utilization of dogs. Now,
Mm.
hear me out. Dogs, not hounds. Because in the conversations with some of these legislators, they were under the impression that Brittany Spaniels or Golden Retrievers did the same thing that lion hounds do because they treed the birds.
Treeing a bird?
So you treed the bird.
Oh
The
my
the
god.
the black labs treed the ducks because so they had to be talked off a cliff to say, no, 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 no. We're not trying to ban dogs. We're trying to ban the use of hounds. Dogs don't bother us in any way, shape, or form. At least not right now. But they were worried that these Brittany Spaniels and whatever the hell else were treeing, I guess, treeing rabbits and treeing birds and whatever the hell else. It shows the lunacy of the opposition and how uninformed they are when it comes to the wildlife side of things. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm so
Oh, they're
steadfast
just
in trying to
they're
carry the
just
message.
retarded, and it's you can say retarded again because Trump
Yeah.
said you can. So we said it when we were kids, and we're bringing it back. They're retards.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so okay, but then we also have, in addition to that, a statewide beaver plan.
Yeah. Statewide beaver management plan that is going to take this for what it is. Colorado Parks and Wildlife has determined that we have between 60 and 90,000 beavers in the state of Colorado, done by GIS mapping and satellite imaging on standing water, not moving water, not running water like the Colorado River, the Arkansas River, or the South Platte. The 60 to 90,000 beaver. And this is called by some a attempt to restore beaver populations in the state of Colorado.
60 to
So it got
90,000 sounds like a hell of a lot to me.
well, especially in an area of, they say, well, in the 1700s there used to be millions. Well, in the 1700s we didn't have irrigation ditches, and we didn't have 5 million people drinking us out of house and home on water, and we didn't have 84 million visitors, and we didn't have, I mean, the hypocrisy of what this is. And I sat on the Beaver Management Plan working group, and I can tell you that the things that I brought out from a wildlife control operator and a trapper and a representative of the predator and trapper community, um, they had no idea what they were talking about. And we are going to have some sort of management modifications that there's one thing of interest, and this is something that our
But
enemies
you have to
can't.
catch a beaver in a cage, right?
Got to catch a beaver in a cage unless you're going to shoot it, or unless you're going to do a 30-day exemption period and you're protecting private property.
So you
Uh,
already are
you
hamstrung
know,
with that, and now they're like, we're going to implement some further restrictions because God forbid, we can't let the beaver go extinct. I mean, geez, there's only 90,000 of them.
well, and do we agree that there's value to beavers on the landscape? You bet your ass.
Sure.
But me as a wildlife control operator also understand that there's about a 2 month window of opportunity when you can translocate a beaver, because they can't be taken from some place to another unless they have a house and a food cache and the weather is going to be appropriate. They're going to die. You're creating an automatic death sentence. And so what we have before us is something that our anti-friends have not considered. And because the constitutional amendment that was imposed back in 1996 through a ballot initiative allows for, in the Constitution, allows for the protection of private property for human health and safety, or agriculture purposes, or a variety of other things. And unless they're going to go back and change the Constitution, there's some things that they cannot change in any way, shape, or form. There's still going to be that provision there. Now, what there again, going back to the avocational side, the recreational side, if they could stop the ability to sell or to trade or to barter that'll take a significant amount of the engagement out of the equation. And I really honestly believe that it doesn't have anything to do with the fact of how many they say we do, even though we don't do as many as they say. It's the fact that we do any, period. They don't want us to kill 1 or 2 or 27.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And they don't plan on stopping until they get what they want.
Yeah. And they know that with this governor and the first gentleman that they've got about 13 months left to be able to try to accomplish their goals. And we have been victorious on every single level since they took office, except for wolves that we did not fight on because we were fighting all this other shit.
So, you mentioned potential legislation to ban the use of dogs, hounds. I've taken a mountain lion in Colorado with hounds, and I'd like to do it again someday. I know.
I mean,
I
what the hell is wrong with you? You come here to degrade and erode our wildlife resources. What is wrong?
I come here to exploit your state. Yes, all of your resources.
Yeah. Well, you didn't take a deer, so you had to kill a lion. So
it took me 3 trips in 21 days to get that lion. And, talk about all of the money that I pumped into Colorado's economy on those 3 trips. It was significant.
You mean you just didn't drive up here and keep your fat ass in the truck, in a heated truck, drinking beer, and pull up to the tree and jump out and plug it?
No, it was one of the most physically grueling hunts I've ever done, all 3 of them. And actually, we did some on horseback, but he didn't put me on a horse. He put me on a mule because he said he said I can't put a dude. He called me a dude on one of these horses. These are like Lamborghinis, and you were more of like a Ford Taurus type of guy. So I got this mule you're gonna ride on, and I was very thankful because one of the cliffs we went up was so steep, and I was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna fall backwards." This mule hit the ground, and I was like crapping myself. I mean, not literally, but I was scared. And then all of a sudden, it just went wah, 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 and just got back up on all 4s. I was like, "How did this thing do this?" And how steep this ridge, this cliff is. It was just a big old rock slide, and I'm like, God. Some of the most hairy stuff I've done. And then when we actually got to the tree of one of the cats we let go because it was a female, he had to take one of his dog leads off of his belt and give it to me like down this cliff and basically pull me up because it was so steep I couldn't get up there. So there was some sketchy stuff going on, and I loved every second of it.
Well, and in the way that we're working through the trials and tribulations of this, it's not even public perception. It's an agenda by a specific user group, and they're normally a non-consumptive user group. It's amazing, and if people could go back and synthesize what has been said or done since the entire 127 campaign, they've changed their storyline, and they've adapted their messaging and created more lines of BS that they know that didn't resonate with the audience they're trying to get. So they've changed their ideologies, although it's the same outcome. They've tried to soften it a little bit, and they've tried to manipulate and say, well, what the voters meant. This is what even the voters that voted yes and the voters that voted no, all of a sudden this is what they meant.
Oh yeah.
And
I think they meant what they voted for.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is. And you can tell that they're trying to get the commission and the General Assembly to change their stance. I think the one thing that we've got going for us is, as we can continually have heard since November of last year, the will of the people. The will of the people voted for wolves, and I'm not disputing that. Did I agree with it? No. Was it by a very minuscule margin? Yes. But the will of the people really, really came out and voted against these other things. And I think the hypocrisy that we can hold the values to, and even if it's through court or whatever other measures we have to do, we're willing to stand behind the will of the people on 114, even though you guys are screwing up the introduction process.
Yeah.
But by God, you can't turn around and turn your back on the will of the people on all of these other issues when they had 10 and 17 and 31 point margins.
Right. What about Initiative 98, which this one I have a little familiarity with, and is this is one of the most insane things I think I've ever heard of.
It's a cluster.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that. This will blow your mind, folks.
Initiative 98 is an offtake of what started out for Initiative 52, then became Initiative 82, and the proposal of that is a ballot initiative proposal is to create a wildlife and ecosystem conservation commission that will oversee wildlife and natural resources in Colorado. The initiative it seeks to replace the current.
What about Colorado Parks and Wildlife? Don't they already do that?
Well, wait a minute now. This is going to replace the current Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission and proposes a new commission with sweeping authority and a self-funding mechanism through fines and penalties alongside of a 0.5% sales tax. Critics have raised concerns about potential negative impacts on wildlife management, habitat protection, and the economy. The new commission would actually be the ultimate authority on public and private land on things that they could determine that would be keystone. It wouldn't matter, just like what beavers now are been determined a keystone species. But the infrastructure of this whole concept, provisions for a state wildlife corridor network, and requires new infrastructure projects intersecting these corridors to include wildlife crossings like overpasses and underpasses, including but not limited to eminent domain, just like what we heard before. A lot of the critics express worry that the initiative could dismantle the existing proven wildlife management practices and that the new commission may be staffed by individuals without relevant expertise in management of wildlife, hunting, conservation, and the North American model of wildlife management. This is something that has morphed into almost an emulation of what IP3 in Oregon was to make Oregon a sanctuary state where you wouldn't be able to kill a mouse or catch a fish or raise a cow or a calf or a pig or a chicken or hunt a deer or an elk. This, when you read this, 27 some odd pages of this, and see what they've tried to go through from morphing it into the original initiative of 52 to 82 and now to 98, you just look at this and go, and I'll use your term, retards.
Yeah.
Retards.
Yeah. Big time. So just in layman's terms, we're going to cut Colorado Parks and Wildlife's balls off because they aren't doing what we want. And we're going to create this commission that is now their overlord, and we can stack it with whoever we want and do whatever we want.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the wording on this and you look at how it's been translated,
it's insane.
They call it the Colorado Working Lands and Wildlife Corridors Act. But when it was Initiative 82, it was something to the effect of Colorado Ecosystem and Biodiversity Protection Act. Well, that didn't resonate well enough with the General Assembly or the Legislative Council, so they changed it, morphed it into some other stuff, even though there's a lot of similarities, and then put it into context to where now it has to do with Colorado Working Lands and Wildlife Corridors Act. The reason I say, and I'll back up, if you look at what the antis have done since losing the election in November of 24, they have modified and they've tried to capitalize on this smoke and mirrors campaign. You remember what we did last year. We had two mirroring campaigns along with what the Wildlife Council was doing on its own that I happened to be the chair of at the time, but the council was doing something that was statutory that we've been doing for 26 years. The message that we created through the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, which everybody's familiar with under Save the Hunt Colorado,
right,
mirrored what we created with the Colorado Wildlife Deserve Better campaign. The Colorado Wildlife Deserve Better campaign was the Issues Committee. If you listen to everything that the anti said during that entire campaign, that we were lying and that we were befuddling the general public about Colorado wildlife deserve better. Well, slap on the back to us for being able to come up with a phrase that resonated with the general public that they thought, yeah, Colorado wildlife does deserve better. And we convinced them of that to let the scientists and the experts to do it. If you look at the tactics that we used, our enemies are now using our tactics by creating these terms and these cliche phrases about Colorado Working Lands and Wildlife Corridors Act or the Ecosystem and Biodiversity Protection Act. If you turn around and throw this stuff in front of the average voter just by the title and look at the blue book and what that would say, the average person would probably go, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let me check yes.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
And then they'd be like on the wolf deal. About 3 years later, they'd go, well, who the hell did that?
Yeah.
So,
wait, I voted for that?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something to where they're attempting to navigate the political landscape through the ballot, through the commission, and through the General Assembly over and over and over and over. And the reason it's continually worth mentioning is to keep people apprised that it's not just Colorado, ladies and gentlemen. It's multiple states that have been unsuccessful in a lot of arenas to get what they want. And they are modifying and adapting their practices and their attacks to try to befuddle the general public or the legislature and accomplish something that most people think is never going to happen. And when they find out it does, they go, well, we should have done something.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of hope. I don't know. When I see something like the IUCN, the International Union of Conservation, come out in Europe and say we're no longer entertaining the idea of trophy import bans because science loses. I don't know. It gives me a little bit of hope that science is winning and that the world is healing a little bit from these radical anti-hunting ideologies. I mean, it's still very much alive and well in Colorado, and you can't be naive enough to think that they're just going to quit. But that does give me hope that Europe can come together and be like, no, hey, we're not. This is, and it's mostly African wildlife, right? That they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But they're like, no. We actually understand that if you take the value away from the animal actually, the species loses, and that land will be turned back into, because a lot of that South Africa, especially, is reclaimed grazing land. Like it once was wild, then it was grazed. The place I've been over there is 30,000 acres. Been there 8 times, and it was cattle. It was a cattle ranch at one point in time, and then a guy bought it and was like, I want to turn this into a hunting preserve because there's value. And 30 years later, it's this robust ecological haven for 30 different species or whatever it is. And that wouldn't be possible if it was just if you put cattle or sheep or goats on there. No, it'd just be grazed. That's what it would be.
Well, and the other thing too is that providing value from a social component that if you ask 94% of all the general public in the United States, do they appreciate wildlife? They say yes. But how does that happen? They're not really sure. But they want to make sure that it's done appropriately and it's done humanely and it's got a level of ethics and morals and values that are imposed, which come through laws, rules, and regulations and federal legislation and state legislation and a funding mechanism that is supplied whether an individual species needs it or not. Now, our opposition will continually oppose every single thing that we say when it comes to that stuff because we're a bunch of knuckle dragon Neanderthal bastards that we just want to kill more stuff. I go back to the deal that, and more people need to say these sort of things. Where do you know, and we said it through the campaign, but we said it through a lot of our advertisements, where do you know, for example, that like in Colorado, a 9% success rate on elk? Can you imagine going to the grocery store 91% of the time after you drew a tag to go and then you're unsuccessful in getting anything from the grocery store? How many times would you go back to do that?
Right.
We self-impose these funds on these activities and the opportunity for us to go out and be able to do what we do, knowing full well that the odds are against us. And so who else on the planet besides sportsmen and women have done that over and over and over? And if there's an example that I'm unaware of, I wish somebody would tell me. But every time I say that, people always come back and say, everybody owns the wildlife. Yeah, they do, because it's a public trust. But not everybody pays for it. And not everybody puts the blood, sweat, and tears, and not everybody turned around and reclaimed the wildlife resources that were being inappropriately harvested late 1800s, early 1900s,
Yeah.
until guys like Teddy Roosevelt and Grinnell and Pinchot and all these guys turned around and came together to establish what we have today. We have the most undeniable, the recognized and acknowledged and envied model of wildlife management in the world. And the countries that are doing a fairly decent job right now are emulating what we did to turn around and provide value and an economic benefit and an additional cause of, I mean, I'll give you an example. Back in 1998, I was fortunate enough to go bear hunting in Russia, and a Russian brown bear. And after the language barriers were addressed and we could cross, besides drawing stick figures and trying to call each other names in different languages.
Heard that on those hunts specifically, it's some of the worst food you'll ever have.
The Russian one was not bad. The Mongolian one that I did, I lost 13 pounds in 7 days. So, I mean, Richard Simmons doesn't have anything on that deal. But the Russians that I dealt with acknowledge the fact, and this is 98. This is 8 or 9 years after the perestroika in the Cold War. But they acknowledge, hey, we used to kill everything. We used to just decimate everything. And the reason that we have stuff now is for guys like you to come over here that we could turn around and guide to give us value. We used to, if we saw a bear, we killed it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. It didn't have to be creating damage. We killed it. Now we wait to save the bears for you to come over to put some economic benefit in, and we want to manage the bears because we've seen a better way to do things. This was 30 years ago, for crying out loud. And that model has continued to grow and escalate and enhance. And at the same time, we've been opposed at so many different levels. It's a wonder we even have what we have left. But people are starting to see the light. And I think that the message that's been created from the opposition, from the antis, from the animal rights extremists, falls on about an 8 to 10% of the general population. It's just that we don't do a very good job of telling our story outside of our circles and our choirs of the conservation groups that we're all members of. You watch, and I hope people listen to this. From Thanksgiving until New Year's, watch how many World Wildlife Fund commercials, Humane World for Animal commercials, ASPCA commercials you see about domestic and wild animals that you need to give to save this and do that. Watch how many hunting conservation commercials you see, and you won't see any unless it's on the Pursuit Channel, Outdoor Channel, or Outdoor TV.
Yeah, you'll see zero.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because we're talking to the choir and they're talking to the general public. We need to tell our story, and we need to be better at doing it.
No doubt. No doubt about it.
I get worked up about it.
Oh, yeah. And I also think on an international level, and I was talking to Chris Dorsey of Sporting Classics the other day. He just did a polar bear hunt in Canada and completed it. It was the last of his 29 North American species. And he was like, and this is something I've always said about Africa, but it's crazy that we do it and we dictate it to our neighbors to the north too. So, okay, we created the most successful conservation model that the modern world has ever seen in the North American model, and we've given it to you. Here, do this. And then you do it, and we have the audacity to come in and say, we don't really trust you to do it. We don't believe that you're doing it correctly, even though science says that in 1984 there was 25,000 polar bears. Today there's 30,000 polar bears. No, we don't care about that. We're going to ban the importation of them because you suck at doing it. There's 300% more wildlife in South Africa today than there was 50 years ago.
Yes.
We don't trust you to do it. Sorry, Botswana. No, we can't. We're not going to import your elephants, even though you have exceeded your carrying capacity by 100%. No. You don't know what you're doing. It's just like modern day colonialism. We're just dictating to them. We told you how to do it. You said, okay, we accept those terms. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do a damn fine job. You're going to be proud of us, big bro. And then we're like, slap them on the wrist, like, F you, we don't care.
Well, you talked about following our social media stuff. Maybe you saw this one of the latest posts we did with Governor Polis. It's got a couple 100,000 views, and it was when he was at Sportsman's Day at the Capitol, and he was actually signing a piece of legislation, and we took one of his sound bites, and he talks about the appreciation and the acknowledgement and the backslapping of all the sportsmen and women of the state of Colorado, and we really appreciate everything that they do. But then he turns around and goes out and signs bills that were addressed and that were introduced, pieces of legislation to prohibit or restrict firearms or the utilization of wildlife and appropriately managed through scientific management practices. The hypocrisy of what they have, it's these guys have gotten to a point to where if they say it enough, no matter what it means, people are going to believe it because there's no counter to it. And if they say it frequently enough in a manner that resonates with unknowing, uneducated individuals about the subject matter, well, he must be right because he's the only one that's talking about it.
Yeah. It reminds me of something I lived through at one point in my lifetime. It was about, the last 4 years. And folks being like, no, Joe Biden's mental capacities are still there.
Yeah.
Jake Tapper on CNN every day. Oh, no, Biden's fine. Biden's out of office. What does Jake Tapper do? Writes a book about Biden's declining mental capabilities. Literally. Yeah. Writes a book about it. Like for 4 years, you told me he was fine. And now you're telling me that the whole time he wasn't? I mean, no kidding. We watched the guy shake hands with air. Like, fall up the stairs. We knew he wasn't all there.
That the press has been during the campaign some of the best counterparts we could have gotten because they saw the light of what we were trying to promote. When we had the Denver Post and multiple other forms of media support our efforts and despise and refute the opposition of us on 127 and 308. But the more pressure that you see that press and that form of media taking from this administration, you can see where they start to become more middle of the road, more midline. They don't tell the full story. They take things out of context. They do an interview and they say, this is what Dan Gates said. Oh, wait a minute. No, Dan Gates said this, this, and this, and you took the middle section out.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that before. And now they're starting to do that more frequently. And I think there again, it plays into the politicizing of this that we talked about at the beginning of this conversation. Take politics out. It's never going to be out. Let's just let the facts play out to where the agencies give the science and the data, and they take public input and they compare that with the science and the data, and they synthesize that to the best of their abilities without government intervention of political agendas to come in and say, no, this is what we want, and you need to do this because we appointed or elected these people to put in those spots. Let the science play out. I'm not against getting rid of agencies. I'm for getting rid of the politicizing of government individuals that are manipulating agencies to try to get what they want because of their personal lifestyles and beliefs.
Yeah, 100%. Well, as we wrap things up here, Dan, talk about you guys have an auction, a fundraiser event going on.
We got three things, and I appreciate you bringing it up because first I'll cover the calendar that we've done, the Women of Conservation calendar. It's a 14-month calendar. And somebody might say it's just a calendar, but it's got a bunch of important dates about draw deadlines and commission dates and election dates and banquets and conventions and a variety of things that go into this. We got sponsors, including Shields and Davis Tent and Slida Gun Shop and a Wild Sheep Foundation, Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society, Muley Fanatics, Safari Club International, Gunworks, Fierce Firearms, Iron Will Outfitters. People in organizations that came together to help us pull this off. But all of the women in this, no nudes, no bikinis. I want to emphasize that if anybody's not seen it. These are women that got involved with our campaign, and there was only 14 of the ones that we picked. We're going to do another calendar next year. But these are women that helped change and make a difference on the election campaign side of things, where we won last year was 18 to 44-year-old women, 25 miles east or west of the I-25 corridor. And these are literally the representation of those women. These all are mothers or professionals. Some are houndswomen. Some are rodeo gals. Some have kids. Some don't. The reason I wanted to emphasize this is because without women in today's environment, we are unsuccessful in becoming victorious because the women make the decisions in the majority of the households. Now, we might say that we wear the pants in the family. Sometimes I know friends of mine that maybe they don't wear the pants in the family, but more often than not, the women are saying what they're going to eat, where they're going to shop, what schools they're going to go to, what clothes they're going to wear, what phone service they're going to get, where they're going to go on vacation. The dad has some say into this, especially where he's going to go hunting and maybe if he's going to be able to buy a truck or not. But the women help tell the story of science-based wildlife management, and that's why we're carrying out this calendar deal. So you can go to SaveTheHuntColorado.com and get a calendar. They're $24.95. All the funds go to help us continue to fight and provide lobbying representation at the Colorado State Capitol. That's one fundraising opportunity. We've got two other ones that the Safari Club International Colorado chapter is doing, and you can go to scicolorado.org. And we got another mountain lion hunt done by the Whitaker Brothers Hunting Company. It'll transpire and take place from December until March sometime. That'll be worked out between the recipient and the outfitter. And then we've got a bison meat hunt, including processing, that'll happen in December and January of this year. Both of those have tickets available for $50 a piece or 3 for $100. All of the money goes right back into the fight. And the drawing on those two raffles is December 12th. And you can once again go to SaveTheHuntColorado.com, or you can go to scicolorado.org and get your tickets. These are continuations of raffles that we did through last year's campaign. And we can't thank just not only the sponsors, but the people that have bought raffle tickets in the past. And I want to throw out real quick, the guy that won the lion hunt last year, his wife bought him 2 tickets, and he got a lion hunt and a full-size, life-size mount by Ovis Wildlife Taxidermy.
Oh, wow.
The guy
I just told you I wanted to come do another mountain lion hunt, so.
There you go. I mean, you can support our cause. You have to listen to me, try to profess our wisdom and our knowledge to this. But, it's exciting to me because to get outfitters and businesses to sponsor and to contribute for a continued fight that, in all reality, it's exposure and saturation, but they realize that if we don't win in Colorado, where else are they going to go?
Yeah. Well, who's next?
Colorado is the epicenter. It's the center.
New Mexico is low-hanging fruit if Colorado falls. Like, New Mexico is just done.
Well, especially the way, and I want to mention too, getting off track, but there's a New Mexicans for Responsible Wildlife Management that is starting up in New Mexico. And we've got guys in Idaho that are starting up a chapter of the Idahoans for Responsible Wildlife Management. This is a movement because people see what we did as valuable and they see our tactics as reasonable and logical. And I'm not saying it's a solve all for everybody, but there are things that we can do collectively, statewide, in different states to be able to coalesce that message. And one of the best things you can do is turn around and do a raffle, do a fundraiser, do a calendar, do an event, partner with your partners and feed off of the successes of what you've been able to feed off of. And we just appreciate
people like results. So that's no shock that you'll see these chapters pop up in other states.
We appreciate you, Cable. We appreciate the Meat Eater guys, the Howl for Wildlife guys, the people that have helped us get through this. But we realize that we can't stop. And I didn't intend on doing a podcast. I've got the Through the Gates podcast that we started at the beginning of the year. We just got our studio completed. We've got sponsors for that. I'm a trapper. I'm a wildlife control guy. I didn't intend on doing any of this, but I've got a chip on my shoulder because these sons of bitches have attacked me and my family, my business, and my livelihood. And I know that if I don't do what I need to do to sustain myself, I become the lowest hanging fruit, and who's going to be able to turn around and stand there on these other things? And I think that what we built up proves that sportsmen will be sportsmen, and sportsmen will stand together when the times get tough.
Well, I appreciate the thank you, but not necessary. It's just it comes with, I guess, the territory and doing this for a living. And I'll tell you, I have the heart of a lion, Dan, for this. And I literally mean I have the heart of a lion because I ate that son of a bitch out of my Colorado mountain lion. Yeah, my in the outfitter, he was like, "Yeah, I'll get this thing prepped for the tax numbers," but he's like, "But I don't gut them. I do gutless, and I'll give you the hams and the shoulders and all that stuff." And I said, "I really want the heart." He goes, "You're on your own there, dude. I don't mess with the insides of the cat. That is disgusting." The next morning, he came out there and he's like, "Did you get the heart out?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm taking that with me." Uh-huh. Yeah, you are what you eat. So,
Well, and I think that having the opportunity to create our own podcast gives us a different platform in our legislature, in our commission, and we don't have the following that you and some others have, and we're talking more on the political side, but it gives us a platform that we never had before, and we're finding that people, including General Assembly and commissioners, are listening to and getting information from people that are on the podcast, which is something we never had access to. And I gotta credit you again, because it's guys like you that gave me the spark to say, after other people were coaching and prodding us, maybe we ought to turn around and dip our toes into that a little bit, just to be able to continually carry the message. Now, maybe it's short lived. I don't know. Maybe it's something we can carry on, but we have to take the available platforms and venues that we never used before. And I think that this is something you guys have kind of inspired into us, and we just appreciate all the support.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. And I'm here for you anytime you need it. So, like you said, it's so true. If Colorado falls, what's next? And we can't let that happen. So, it's a worthwhile endeavor to fight the good fight. And, sometimes it beats me down. I'm not going to lie. It does. But I think about what's the alternative, and then I'm fired right back up. So it's
Yep.
Well, man, I appreciate you, Dan. Happy holidays, my friend, and we'll do this again somewhere on down the road.
Thank you, sir. Happy holidays to you, and look forward to working with you.
All right. Take it easy.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.